Lee Anderson delivers a scathing critique of London Mayor Shadiq Khan, highlighting his failed track record in what can only be described as a devastating takedown. The notion of Khan receiving a knighthood despite his disastrous leadership and the state of London under his watch is nothing short of disgraceful. Anderson argues Khan owes the public an apology and should be removed from office. In this video, we'll break down Anderson's remarks, analyze Khan's track record, and discuss the latest political news from across the country. Reports suggest that Shadiq Khan, along with other political figures, may be included in the upcoming New Year's honours list. Having served over 20 years as a Labour politician and recently securing a third term as London mayor, Khan is apparently set to receive the accolade. But let's take a closer look at Khan's record and hear what Lee Anderson has to say about his performance. Stay tuned.
I became the Reform UK's first ever Member of Parliament. Yes. You will also know that this was just after a few supposedly controversial comments I made about Mayor Khan. I like to think of it as constructive criticism. In my opinion, he has given our capital city away and he should be thoroughly ashamed of himself. Yeah. I was told at the time that I must apologise to Labour's mayor in London. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you now, conference, I will never apologise to that man. Let's look at his track record. Overall crime up by 21%, violent crime 35%, homicides 5%, knife crime 54%, sexual offences 51%. It should be him who's apologising to the people of London. A disgrace, you're right. He's got the cheek to tell us that he doesn't feel safe in London. Yeah, let that sink in. He's got bodyguards, armoured car, 24-hour security. He's in charge of the Met Police, and he doesn't feel safe. How does he think the 10 million people that live in London feel under his leadership? This man needs booting out of office for the sake of London.
Lee Anderson's assessment of Shadiq Khan paints a damning picture of a leader failing to uphold the basic standards of safety and governance in London. Anderson's refusal to apologize for his remarks underscores a broader frustration with Khan's leadership, which he claims has led to a catastrophic rise in crime. The statistics cited violent crime up by 35, knife crime by 54, and sexual offenses by 51 are not just numbers. They represent lives shattered and communities living in fear. Anderson accuses Khan of having given our capital city away, a stinging rebuke aimed at what he perceives as Khan's inability to maintain control over London's public safety. The argument extends beyond the data to Khan's own personal security measures. Anderson highlights the glaring hypocrisy of a leader who admits he doesn't feel safe in his own city, despite being surrounded by bodyguards, armoured cars, and 24-hour security. This admission, Anderson argues, is not just an indictment of Khan's governance, but a betrayal of the 10 million Londoners who lack such protections and must endure the rising threat of violence daily. If the mayor, who oversees the Metropolitan Police, cannot feel safe, what hope is there for ordinary citizens? This disconnect, Anderson suggests, reflects a leadership that is out of touch and ineffective. The implications of this failure are profound. A city marred by escalating violence faces not only immediate risks to its residents, but also long-term damage to its reputation and economy. Tourists and businesses may think twice about coming to a city where crime dominates headlines, while residents lose faith in public institutions. Anderson's call to boot this man out of office is framed as an urgent necessity to prevent further harm. Shadiq Khan, he implies, is not just failing at his job. His continued tenure represents an existential risk to the safety, stability, and prosperity of London. For Anderson and his supporters, the stakes could not be higher, and the consequences of inaction more dire.
I just want to make a serious point about knife crime and gun crime in the capital city, because knife crime is rising at the fastest rate in 5 years. Knife point robbery is rising by more than a third. Where is the achievement? You mentioned achievement. Where is the achievement in that?
Look, one knife crime, one homicide is one too many, but because of our public health approach in London, we've seen since I've been mayor a reduction in those under 25 injured with a knife. We've seen a reduction in the number of homicides. Not complacent at all, but the public health approach means invested in enforcement, more police officers at a time of austerity, more community support officers, but also invested in youth workers and youth services as well. And the really good piece of news since 2019, when we set up England's first violence reduction unit, is homicide, knife crime, those below 25, burglaries, robberies down. Not enough, and that's why we need a new government to invest in public services, both in policing, but also youth work as well.
Well, but knife point robberies are up in London 36% to nearly 8,000 a year. There's a 5% drop in the West Midlands, 16% drop in Greater Manchester. Why is London doing so badly on knife crime and knife robberies?
Well, the reason why the Commissioner and I convened mobile phone operators, manufacturers and platforms was because actually the biggest personal robbery is of mobile phones. Now, we know 20, 30 years ago, car manufacturers managed to reduce the theft of car stereos, reduce the thefts of the tom-toms from cars by designing away the possibility of doing so. Car stereos
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's the use of knives I'm talking about, not mobile phones. It's the use of knives in these attacks that I'm talking about. And the use of knives in such attacks is up more than a third.
Yeah, but sure, but that's because they're trying to steal the mobile phones. So if you can make a second-hand phone useless to a robber or a thief, that means the temptation to do so has gone away. Enforcement's really important. So we're using data now to make sure we have police officers targeting those parts of our city which we know are, inverted commas, hotspots. So a combination of using data to target the hotspots, town centres, transport hubs, but also working with the phone manufacturers and the platforms to make sure there is no resale value of a phone. The good news, in those parts of London where previously there were hotspots and robbery hotspots, by using data from policing, but also working with retailers and others, we've seen a reduction in those parts of London. What we need, though, is not just more police officers, but also working with phone companies to make sure there is no second-hand value of a phone being stolen.
Yeah, and I mentioned gun crime as well, up 6% according to the Home Office across London. These are serious.
The prospect of Shadiq Khan as Prime Minister is a chilling one, considering the damage he has allegedly inflicted on London as its mayor. If his track record is any indication, his leadership on a national scale would spell disaster for the United Kingdom. Khan's tenure as mayor has been marred by skyrocketing crime rates, including increases in knife crime and violent crime, not to mention ongoing concerns over public safety. These statistics are not just numbers. They represent real lives lost, families torn apart, and communities living in fear. Scaling this level of incompetence to the entire country would be catastrophic, leading to widespread destabilization and an erosion of public trust in government institutions. Khan's alleged inability to effectively manage London's economy is another red flag. Under his leadership, businesses have faced increased regulatory burdens, while high-profile companies and investors have expressed concerns about London's declining appeal as a global hub. Imagine this on a national scale. an economy strangled by mismanagement, driving businesses to relocate, foreign investors to look elsewhere, and ordinary citizens to bear the brunt of a stagnating economy. Khan's policies, if extended to Downing Street, could result in a brain drain, skyrocketing unemployment, and a national reputation in tatters.